Hi, welcome to the Catholic Corner. I'm Monsignor Walter Nolan. You know, rooted in the gospel invitation to share the healing mission of Jesus our Christ, it's really a call for us to really, I think, live the blessings of our Christ. Our own Diocese of Trenton, the Department of Pastoral Care advances the compassionate and competent spiritual, pastoral, and sacramental care of God's suffering people by resourcing the clergy, pastoral ministers, healthcare professionals, and caregivers who serve them. John Kalinowski, he's the director of the Department of Pastoral Care, and Janice Bell is the coordinator of maturing adults for the Department of Pastoral Care. Both are marvelous, wonderful friends, people, Christians, and just good salt of the earth. They'll share for us today the ministry and recent workshops they sponsored, which offered education and support for what they call the sandwich generation. And I'm so anxious to find out more about the sandwich generation. Janice and John, welcome to the Catholic Corner.
Thank you, Monsignor.
John, we'll start with yourself if you don't mind. You know, we just got to talk here, so we can all just jump in. The pastoral care, what is it really? When does it make sense?
Well, when we talk about pastoral care, it's the idea of someone coming and bringing this sense of support, relief, and love to people, whether they be in a hospital situation, hospice, nursing home, or at home. The idea is that there's this sense of care and compassion that really comes from our love and from our faith as we are as Catholic Christians, to help others, and that's to serve others is what we really try to do in the ideas of pastoral care.
You know, it's interesting that we're talking about this because this past weekend was, World Missionary Sunday, or a week, however we look at that. And part of my thoughts were that, we always talk about the missionaries over there and the missionaries over there. We're all missionaries.
Absolutely.
And I think when you're talking about with your pastoral care, and especially, it's a call to mission, right? With our own families and our own community.
It really is. I think of how I got started. It was really through a missionary aspect of being an extraordinary minister of Holy Communion at St. Francis Medical Center, and with the sense of there was the general population of the sick, there was a prison ministry, and there was psychiatric ministry. And in my discussions with my spiritual director, he said, this is a calling and mission that God is really wanting you to look into. And all these years later, as the director of pastoral care and having just completed chaplaincy studies, I know how important it is to people of faith to have pastoral care wherever they need it, wherever we meet them.
We're really brothers and sisters, aren't we?
Absolutely.
At the end of the Gospel of Matthew, the Lord says, go and teach. He's telling to everybody, go and teach everything I taught you. When you look at the Gospel, what did he teach in Matthew's Gospel? Those Beatitudes, Blessed are those who take care of the poor. Blessed, blessed, blessed. And that's, I think, what you both are all about with our own diocese. And now caregivers, people might want to respond as a volunteer.
Right.
How do you give them some direction, so they can be a real caregiver?
For in the sense of overall pastoral care, and I can really speak to the issues of health care, and then Janice can certainly talk about the maturing adult aspect of it. But we hold workshops, and we ask basically at the parish level for people who may be interested in visiting in hospitals, visiting in nursing homes, and in many cases, parishes have a ministry of visiting the home. And it's not just to bring Eucharist, but to bring Scripture and bring, Christ's message to people. And that's really what we're involved with in overall pastoral care. And, so there are some specifics to parish work that can be done and volunteers in those certain areas that I had just mentioned.
So are they the main areas, or are there other areas in the sense that you cover?
Well, our pastoral care ministry is made up of not only healthcare ministry, but we also have ministry for Respect Life, which would include not only from conception, but end-of-life issues. We've been dealing a lot with that lately with going through the New Jersey legislation. And we also have areas in bereavement, consolation. We do prison ministry, and then in Janice's areas of advocacy for disabilities, and then other areas of addiction advocacy. So, and then, you know, Janice certainly is the expert in the maturing adults and the disability advocacies, which are ministries, really. That's the way we look at them.
We just did a workshop for the caregiver because so many times the caregiver is so stressed and so unable to take care of themselves because they're taking care of their care partner. And we just did a workshop which was extremely well received. We're going to do it again in the spring. And hopefully we're going to do it this time on a Saturday, because one of the challenges that we felt there was is the caregivers have to have somebody come in and take their place while they go and to a workshop.
Okay, that's really interesting. Now, when you say, because when you talk about caregiver, at first I was thinking of like the volunteer who would go, but now you're talking about the person that lives in the house, or the spouse, or the
It could
aunt,
be
or
all
uncle,
of-
or brother, sister,
Right.
mother, whatever.
Truly,
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
above.
Right.
I mean, it could be a family member, it could be a volunteer, it could be anybody who is caring for a person who needs care.
So not only the professional and the volunteers that are going into institutions, but we also provide the opportunity for training, workshops, enrichment days, even for those people who are caregivers in the home. And really, our workshop that we did was, how do I, and almost everybody is going to be a caregiver at some point in their life, how do I get the support based on the ability to have the time to rest, the time to do my own thing, and still keep my matters of Jesus, you know, faith of how to be and live the Christian life,
And not feel guilty.
and not feel guilty.
Right.
You know, when you need that little space of time for yourself, or go to a movie and leave someone, you know, all of a sudden.
This is one of the home studies that I'm trying to get our maturing adults to do. And I've been encouraging parishes to buy this DVD series from the Johnson Institute on the 10 essentials of caregiving. And what I'd love to see is the parishes run, you know, a workshop that is maybe 4 weeks in a row, where they would come on an afternoon or an evening and just study how they can take care of themselves so that they can take better care of the person that they need to care for. The course itself is excellent, and something that I think will catch on after a while. First, I have to figure out really how we can get people free enough to spend the time to attend these kinds of workshops.
Well, that's the problem in the world today for everybody, from the youngsters kicking a ball around to moms and dads and grandmoms and grandpops. You know, it seems like we have a great retirement community now, but the people that retire are as busy as before they retired, because there's just so much happening in our world.
And even,
Sure.
you know, when we look at getting people involved at maybe even a younger age, you've got, you know, soccer, football,
Sure.
after-school activities, and it's tough for us even to hold workshops and seminars that somebody can do a Friday and a Saturday. We do bereavement training that way, Friday, Saturday, and we don't get a full spectrum of people that would be involved in that ministry. Same thing when we do retreats. A lot of them are for pastoral care, are on a Saturday, and for some people it's very difficult to give up a whole Saturday.
So you sit there and say, well, do we do a little piece here, a little piece there, or do we
Well,
put
I
it
think
together?
Do what you can.
Yeah, we're constantly readjusting the schedule. I've been with the diocese for almost 2 years now, and I'm continually readjusting what are we going to do for next year, how does it work, how did it work this year, and going forward, what do we need to do to change it to give this a wider audience of people to come for our caregiving?
Probably, and I'm sure I'm not telling you anything, brand new, but it just seems that the way the world's going, we're going to do a lot of things, through the internet in a sense, and you can stay home and plug into something and get the message that way. And I mean, universities are doing it, corporations are doing it, but that's maybe that's our answer for the future.
And we actually, one of the ministries is Rainbows, is for grief, loss, and support, basically for children. And they've gone from having people come and give the workshops to a whole online certification program. And you go through all the slides, the videos, and you take a certification test at the end. And then they say, yes, you are now certified. And then what we do is we take those people within the Diocese of Trenton, bring them together, and then give them additional enrichment days and training with a hands-on approach to people who are already doing the ministry. So we're starting to see this as part of what is going to be the future.
On the other hand, with the maturing adults, it's much more of a challenge to think of them as being computer reliant, because that's not their background, not their expertise. And the truth is, it is the majority of the people who are at church and enjoying Mass. They are the majority. So when you look at the maturing adults, people 55 and over, we have to see if we can get them to serve each other. It is really their job to come and pray together. So all the different organizations that are in the church, different ministries and so forth, they're really, they're wonderful resources for us to look at and go to, say, the Rosary Society, the Knights of Columbus, and see if we can get these groups involved in some of the study groups. And maturing adults, I have 4 courses that I promote, and they're all so uplifting and positive, which to me, that's what's important. It's easy to talk about aging and aches and pains. Yes, as we live in an environment that's full of oxygen, that is what happens to us. We age. But we're also full of experience and knowledge and wisdom that we can share with each other and other generations. So we need to keep that in mind. So the 4 courses that I support and I encourage are all positive approaches to maturing. So one is called the 12 Keys to Ageless Living. And it's 12 different keys that has nothing to do with aging in the negative sense. It's all in the positive sense.
You're going to tell me a few of those keys so I can kind of like say, do I have them or don't I have them? What are some of those keys?
Well, they're wonderful keys because they're all about, thinking of your spiritual self and having your spiritual self nourished and grow. It's the idea that you feel you have something to give to your other children, to your younger children and other generation by talking about example and talking about what you have done. There's many, many different ways of doing it. Another course that I encourage is called Well, Wise, and Whole. Well of body, wise of mind, whole in spirit. It's encouraging each of those things and trying to give people ways to do that. Exercise. People in our generation have to exercise. If we're going to keep moving, we have to move. And that's one of the big things that we encourage.
Turn off the TV.
Turn off the TV.
Go for a walk.
Don't do. That's right. That's right. Get a doggy.
Get a dog, or else at least sit there with a machine that gets you going.
You got to keep moving. That's
Yes.
that's the idea of keeping moving and keeping connected with our faith is it changes, I think, throughout our lifetime as well.
One other course that I encourage is called The Spirituality of Retirement. And that is so important for men. When I took the course myself, I was fortunate enough to take it from Dr. Richard Johnson. And I'll never forget, because it just shocked me. He said, "Do you know who the highest percentage of suicides is?" And in my mind, my answer was, "Oh, teenagers." Men 72 and older. Because, as Eastman and Eastman Kodak said, what else is there after my career? So it's a very sad thing that many men in our generation in particular feel that by retiring, they're finished. But what we do is try to encourage them to see now they have the ability to grow in their spiritual side and their sense of self in God's eyes. And that's a beautiful, beautiful course.
And a tremendous amount of wisdom
Oh,
that
tremendous.
gentlemen and women have in those kind of years that they can share with others. Or also, I find it myself, I'm listening to you because I'm in this kind of a category. But when you start to think that, yes, and that's the greatness I think about faith of deaths and resurrections, because it's not just the Lord. When you look at yourself, there's a lot of times in your life there's a death. I mean, graduating high school.
Right.
Well, what am I going to do
Yeah,
now? I
right.
mean, my friends that I played with and whatever, and then you have a whole new awakening. And I think if you allow yourself when you retire to have another awakening, because God now gives you maybe more time to read, maybe more time to visit, maybe more time to say, you know what, I always really wanted to do that.
A really
Do it.
fun thing to think about is Tarzan, who of course we all know who Tarzan was. And how Tarzan would swing on the vines? Well, he'd swing on the vine and then he'd grab another vine.
Yeah.
And then he'd swing on the vine and then he'd grab another vine. That's what it's all about. That's what maturing is all about. It's always
I
learning.
think I did that a little better when I was like 19.
Yeah.
I just can't picture myself,
You're being
swinging on
very
the
literal.
vine.
But the thing that I find interesting when we talk about maturing adults and caregiving is, as Janice was saying, and you were saying, we are living longer. We, as a diocese, have to know what the parish's needs are, whether they're still actively involved in their parish or if they're going into a nursing home, and not just really look at others to take care of our loved ones, but we've become part of that process. So what we're doing through the pastoral care is to open up workshops and things like that that will provide people with the opportunity to learn more about how can I care for my loved one, not just from the physical aspects, of which many are very comfortable with doing, but how do I care for them in faith? How do I keep them engaged, through, one of the things we teach often, especially in the hospitals, is meditation to ease pain and keep that person away from what could really be ailing them. As a chaplain, one of the things that I do go in is I'll meet with the families and we'll have a wonderful conversation about care and giving, and mom's doing great, dad's doing great, and then they walk out of the room and the person laying in the bed says, you know what, that all may be true, but you know what, I'm tired of being a burden to my family. So we're giving them the opportunity, but it has to be a partnership between the caregiver and the person receiving the care, and the ability as the chaplain, as the nursing staff and the medical staff to be involved in these matters that are important.
I also think, John and Janice, we all have to look at the scriptures and the depth of the whole Christ event in a sense of saying, there's a time that even Jesus took a step and said, you can minister to me. Mm-hmm. That's why I always like the Veronica's veil in a sense, mm-hmm. because the Lord who gave his whole life said, you can wipe my face. And there's grace in allowing someone else to kind of wipe your face, or however you want to put that. And I think we have to realize that that's also a gift that we're giving someone else. And so when you say, I don't want to be a burden,
right?
You're actually allowing them to because they want to. They want to give us life back. They want to give us a little more time back. And it's a wonderful thing when we can feel it from both ends, I think. Janice, you had a thought.
Well, yes, I'm thinking about the sandwich generation.
Yeah.
And I want to say, you know, our generation, our children, for the most part, live all over the place. I have one in Georgia, one in Virginia, one in New York State, and I have a son who lives in a group home in Delaware. Well, don't think that I'm not a caregiver for him because he's far away. When he had a kidney stone, who had to be there like that in the emergency room? And fortunately, John understands, so I could run down there. But the truth of the matter is, thinking of me maturing in the ways that pastoral care would be necessary, my children are far away. I'm far more worried about my special son than I am about me, because I don't even think about that yet. I'm too busy. But I will one day need to think about that.
And a similar situation that I'm in is my parents are in their late 80s. They're in Buffalo, New York. I'm here in New Jersey. I have a sister in Rochester, a sister in Baltimore, and a sister who has her own family, yet is 10 miles from my parents. So a lot of this falls on her. And so we have to then, as a family, be able to share as to what is our role, even if we're 300 miles away. And so what I would say an important part of caregiving is also to those persons that we're giving the care to is an understanding of what the role of a wife, a husband, a child is to others. We actually sat down at Christmas time last year. My parents have an advance directive, living will, and all those things. But we never talked about what's going to happen if dad needs to go into the nursing home, mom needs to go into the nursing home. We had never had that discussion. We had never had end-of-life discussions with them. And now they've got all these beautiful documents, but we never broached it until Christmas time, and we now have an understanding, what do people want? And that's a very important part of caregiving.
And also, I think, you know, the caregivers at times gets frightened because they don't know exactly. I mean, they might be called on to
Sure, that's
give an
true.
injection. They might be called on to help clear passages in the body. And so there's a whole lot goes on to what they have to do, and to do it with some kind of ease, and to know that they're blessed. Tell me a little bit, if you can. I know that one of your ministries is with deaf people and interpreters. What are you doing with that area of
We
ministry?
are the state of New Jersey is having a deaf interpreter religious workshop that's coming up this Saturday, and it's going to be in Westmont, New Jersey. And that is going to be for people who are already interpreters, but a little shaky on thinking about interpreting the Mass. So this is going to teach them. We have a priest who is deaf who is going to teach them exactly how to do it for the deaf population who want to attend Mass. This is very important because what we are finding is that people who are deaf, if the Catholic Church doesn't have an interpreter for them, they go to other churches. And, you know, they hate to not have a Catholic Mass that they can attend. And we hate to see that they haven't a Catholic Mass to attend. So we're encouraging these interpreters to have their services available to all the parishes in our diocese.
You know, it's a wonderful, beautiful thing. Even as a priest, you know, at times when you're up there at the altar and celebrating, to see the whole family come together, and people because we all have some needs. I mean, none of us are so perfect, you know, spiritually or bodily or whatever. But to see, you know, from the little children who maybe cry out to I just get filled with I guess joy, I'll say in a different way. And when somebody who maybe is a son or a daughter, I don't know what to say, 60 years old or something, coming down the aisle with mom or dad who is maybe 80, 85, and, you know, holding them up a little bit. And you say to yourself, God, that's the pilgrimage. You know, that everybody's in the caravan, so to speak. Everybody's in the pilgrimage. And, you know, and I think now we're even doing more to make the area suitable for folks and comfortable for folks. And I was blessed when I was, you know, not retired. We did a few things and with some of the people that you've actually taught and trained to do some things like retreats for special, you know, youngsters or adults, so they could learn a little bit more about their faith or experience communion. I mean, I'll never forget a policeman who was like 6'2" and a big strong guy, you know, just crying and saying, I never thought my son would ever be able to receive communion or get confirmed. I mean, and all of those things are just part of all of the blessings that you do.
Well, the wonderful thing, I think, with the diocese is we have these collaborative efforts. So Janice, in working with the advocacy for disabilities, we cross over into areas of education and catechesis, which are so important. So not only from a disability standpoint, but also in the advocacy for deafness, you know, which has a culture which needs special people that are trained to teach, not just to be able to sign, but to teach and have an understanding of what God's gifts are to them to pass on to others. So it's a beautiful ministry. Like I said, we work with youth and marriage and family ministries as well into kind of cross-purposing everything we do in pastoral care, dealing with family dynamics, whether it's the traditional family or the sandwich generation or grandma and grandpa taking care of the grandchildren while mom and dad are working. These
The
are
Lord
really
taught me a lot of things, Janice and John. One of the things He taught me was you gotta tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
A story that might come out of your heart of someone who had a difference in their life made by a caregiver or someone else, real quick.
Oh, I can think of too many at once is my problem.
That's what happens. That's what happens to us.
I think there are so many good-hearted people out there who make a difference in people's lives. And, you know, they don't do it for recognition. So they're not looking for you to say, oh, look, there is. They are satisfied because they feel the faith grow in themselves. And that's what's good.
And it just builds up the body of Christ and the love that we have. Isn't that marvelous? Think about it yourself, how you can help another person that you love and another person in your parish. If you'd like more information, Department of Pastoral Care, contact them, 609-403-7157. Bless you. Love us back.